David surrendered for an audience of one. Second, David battled for an audience of one. 3,000 years ago, they would have these one-on-one battles, and winner would take all. You put up your best guy, we'll put up our best guy, and winner will take all. Well, the problem was the Philistines had a giant named Goliath. And he was taunting the God of Israel. He was taunting Israel for what they believed. And in walks this shepherd boy, poet, musician, who would later become Israel's warrior and king. And he didn't like it. Remember, he had a heart surrendered for an audience of one, and he hears this, and he didn't like it. And he says, I'll take the guy on, and he can't wear the armor, it's too heavy. King Saul's armor is too heavy. And so he just takes those 3 smooth stones and a slingshot and says, this is how I take care of the lion and the bear. I'm going to take care of this guy. And so a confident David walks out, and look what he says when we pick it up in 1 Samuel 17, verses 45 through 47. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. And today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. And I don't think it was said in a whisper. Notice what he said there, and it's what we see in Psalm 60, verse 12. There's this shift to battle for an audience of one that has to occur. I want you to write this down. There's this shift of perspective of victory. It's the shift in perspective of victory from we to he. From we to he. A shift in the perspective of victory from we to he. Look what it says in Psalm 60, verse 12. With God we will gain the victory, and he will trample down our enemies. We begin to make our battles for what David said, for the advancement of God's kingdom in the hearts and lives of people. That's what we begin to battle for. The advancement of God's kingdom in the hearts and lives of people. And here's what he does. When we shift from the perspective of victory from we to he does 2 things. He delivers us and he sustains us. That's what victory is. He delivers us and he sustains us. He delivers us. Psalm 144:10. Psalm 144:10. To the one who gives victory to the kings, who delivers his servant David from the deadly sword. He delivers me. That's what victory is. Psalm 140, verse 7, David wrote this. Psalm 140, verse 7. O sovereign Lord, my strong deliverer, who shields my head in the day of battle. And then he sustains us. He sustains us. Psalm 18:35. Psalm 18:35. You give me your shield of victory in your right hand, sustains me. You stoop down to make me great. Now this is big, and I want you to write this down. He delivers us and he sustains us because we've shifted our perspective of victory from we to he. We're battling for an audience of one. And here's what happens. It frees us to give him the credit. It frees us to give God the credit. We no longer have to say it's about us. We're free to give God for the credit for the advancement of his kingdom in the hearts and lives of people. We'll change from saying, look what we did, to look what he did. Look what we did, to look what he did. As God was transforming my business life, I used to own Cruise International, an auction company. And I felt that I'd held that back, and so I surrendered that to God. One of the things I tried to do among many things was when I was in town, we'd have a stand-up 8-minute or so meeting with 8 guys. So you talk about a minute each. And we would talk about the tasks on the forefront of our schedule. It was a good way for me to stay on top of what we were trying to accomplish that day, make every day meaningful. And so here's what we would do. Here's the risk that I took in that environment, and this meeting was optional. I said, so at the end after we talk about those things, I just want to take a minute, we'll pray for it. We'll just pray, bring God in to this part of our lives, and we'll see what happens. Well, my cousin Kenny had lost his father in a car accident. His mom and my mom are sisters, and Kenny did a change in careers after his father had passed away, and Kenny was in those meetings. Kenny's a lot like Kelly Bird. He's loud, he's funny, he's a cheerleader. And so like I'm at an auction, he traveled with me all over the world. We do an auction about every weekend, and I'd say, sold $100,000. You'd hear Kenny go, oh, Sal, way to go. You know, I'm Sal, he's Guido. That's a whole different story. But he'd be yelling things like that all the time. And we get done with an auction. It was successful, and he says, oh, Sal, look what we did today. You know, that kind of thing. Well, after a season of these stand-up meetings, and after an auction, I'll never forget the first time I heard this. Kenny came out, he's all excited, and he goes, oh, Sal, look what he did. I said, what? He goes, look what God did. We prayed for this, Sal. I thought, oh my goodness. That's what battling for an audience of one looks like. When you shift your perspective of victory from we to he, instead of saying, look what we did, you'll start saying, look what he did. See, we had changed. We needed to make a profit to survive, but we had let that profit be a function of relationships. We believed that remuneration would follow relationships, that profit would follow your relationship with people. And so I made wisdom the measurement stick, as crazy as that sounded, of success for my business. And the money thing seemed to just take care of itself. And we begin to see God do an amazing thing. It was the same thing in Manila. We found ourselves saying again and again and again, he brought 5 guys from 5 different walks of life together, and we just found ourselves saying to each other and to ourselves, look what he did. Look what he did. What would happen if you would change your measurement of success from we to he? If you would look to advance his kingdom in the hearts and lives of other people. I tell you what, he'd deliver you and he'd sustain you. And you'd move from saying, look what we did, to look what he did, if you would not only be surrendered for an audience of one, but if you battled for an audience of one. Third, David was strengthened. David strengthened for an audience of one. This is kind of tucked away. It's 1 Samuel 30, verse 6. That book's starting to close, and here's what I find. See, David had just taken a bunch of guys out. This is before he's king, and he went out on a raid, and he conquered, he won, he took care of business on what he was trying to do. But while he was gone, somebody else came in and raided his guys' families, took their spouses, took their kids. And this isn't a good scene. So you can imagine the emotions that they're coming up. They've got all their success from victory, and they come and they see this. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. This guy's going to be king. They're going to stone him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. They'd been taken away. But look at this. David found strength in the Lord his God. David found strength in the Lord his God. You know, times are really tough right now. And I think they might be worse even than what we're being told and what we're seeing, because I think it runs deep. And I got to tell you, I'm livid about the economic problems. I think just a thimble full of wisdom would have prevented a lot of it, let alone what wisdom all the way would have done. And so I'm really frustrated, and I'm upset, and I don't like it, and I hate it. But I've had to ask myself lately, do I want to believe what I'm sharing with you right now, or do I really believe it? Can I emotionally buy into he is my strength, that I don't have to trust in the economy? And David shines a little light on this in the Psalms. It's chapter 18, verse 1. And here's what he says. I want you to write this down. Strength is the person of God. Strength is the person of God. Strength is a person of God. I love you, O Lord, my strength. Now, this is a little bit of a nuance I want you to catch. One author says it this way. He says we should seek God's face instead of his hands. I'm going to say it this way. We need to seek who rather than do. See, when times are tough, we need to seek who God is, the picture of his face, who he is, and have that heart shaped in us. And not so much his hands, what he can do for us selfishly. It really reveals the heart. You just see one's unselfish, one's selfish. I'm not saying you can't ask God to do anything for you, but there's this shift in perspective because David saw strength in the person of God, not necessarily what he was going to do for him. But here's what happens when you do that. I want you to write this down. He lifts and he gifts. He lifts and he gifts. He lifts us from the old, God does, when we seek his face, the who, not his hands, the do. And he gifts us with the new. He lifts us from the old, and he gifts us with the new. Here's how David said it in Psalm 40, verse 2.